Devotees, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. Right, devotees. It is Christmas Day, and I thought it would be appropriate to discuss some things about Lord Chaitanya, who is the Mahavadanyaya avatar, the most munificent, the most merciful incarnation. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachadeshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkapatribhyascha kripas sindhubhya evacha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. So, devotees, the thing is that we have no other program going on anyway, so why not? And then, of course, it's Christmas, and in the Christian world, which not so many of us are from, Jesus is, they say, who knows, but they say that it's the birthday of Jesus, and he's known for being merciful. Of course, the tradition is extremely confused, and we're definitely not going to get into all of that now, but at least in principle, he's known as being merciful. So, but Lord Chaitanya is the ocean of mercy, from whom others who may be merciful to one degree or another degree, in this way or in that way. Lord Chaitanya is the ocean of mercy, from whom others who may be merciful or may be said to be or seen to be merciful, they're getting their mercy from him. Yes, so that applies to everyone who may be merciful or thought to be like that. Yes, so, and then of course Lord Nityananda. So we'll see how it goes tonight, now, and tomorrow at the same time. For those who would like, we'll see what pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda we can discuss. And, I thought of sort of mixing Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. But I thought of mixing a few pastimes which are not well known, but they're really nice, along mixing them with some pastimes which are well known. So that's our program for this evening and tomorrow at this time. So let us begin with a couple of verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm going to read from the Antya-lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 2, which is titled The Chastisement of Junior Haridas, but I'm not going to read or discuss anything about that specifically. It's just that in this chapter there are a number of pastimes described which are really nice, and some of them are not well known. Okay. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that was Antya-lila chapter 2, verse 2. This is now verse 3. Sarvaloka udarite Gora avatara Nistarera hetutara Trivida prakara. In his incarnation as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Sri Krishna descended to deliver all the living beings in the three worlds, from Brahmaloka down to Patalaloka. He caused their deliverance in three ways. So, this is these three ways that he delivered them. Sakshat Darshana Ara Yogya Bhakta Jive Avesha Kare Kahan Avir Bhave. The Lord delivered the fallen souls in some places by meeting them directly. In other places, by empowering a pure devotee, and in still other places, by appearing before someone himself. So that the first one and the third one might sound like they're the same thing, sort of like that. Meeting the fallen souls directly, and appearing before someone himself. I mean, at least there's some obvious similarity, but actually it's different. They're quite different. That the first one, delivering the fallen souls in some places by meeting them directly, refers to when Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India, preaching. You know, he traveled to Vrindavan, he also traveled up to Bengal when he was living in Puri. But really traveling and preaching, this was Lord Chaitanya in South India. He was just spreading the Sankirtan movement, just very, very proactively and actively, and in this way delivering people himself by his preaching, by his chanting. In other places, he empowered a pure devotee. We're going to read about that. But in the still other places, by appearing before someone himself, it means someone. The first case, delivering the fallen souls in some places by meeting them means in large numbers. But appearing before someone himself means that he actually appeared visibly, or anyway, visibly or effectively visibly, before one person, someone, even though there were others around, but he particularly appeared to one and did something very extraordinary with that one. So this is all very interesting. Let us, I think, let's see, I will read mainly. So, okay. Okay, so here we go. This is a purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered almost all the fallen souls by directly meeting them. He delivered others by entering the bodies of great devotees, such as Nakula Brahmachari, and that's the story, first story we're going to go into. It's really quite an interesting story. And he delivered still others by appearing before them, as in the case of Nishingananda Brahmacharya. I shall deliver the fallen souls. This statement characterizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's nice, isn't it? That's really nice. Was that a purport? Let me just check. Oops. No, it wasn't. It was a verse. It was two verses together. I shall deliver the fallen souls. This statement characterizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, okay, so, we already mentioned about when Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India and preaching, and just every day he was doing Harinam and meeting people and village to village, and sometimes in some pilgrimage centers. He went to Tirupati, he went to Sri Rangam, and many other places actually for several years. So in this way, people saw Lord Chaitanya when he was preaching in South India. Then when Lord Chaitanya was in Jagannath Puri, after that, then people would come and see him in the Rath Yatra. In the Rath Yatra, there'd be, in those days, going back 500 or so 500 years, there'd be 1 million people there. And Lord Chaitanya was just the prominent person, other than Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. But he was just so completely astounding in his love of God that everyone saw him, and they were delivered. Anyone in the world who met him even once was fully satisfied and became spiritually advanced. So even people from all over the universe, including the 7 islands, the 9 khandas, the planets of the demigods, Gandharvaloka and Kinnaraloka, would go to Puri in the forms of human beings. And then, having seen the Lord, they'd all become Vaishnavas. course, the demigods generally are Vaishnavas anyway, but they're generally mixed Vaishnavas. They'd see Lord Chaitanya and they'd really become very focused, pure Vaishnavas. Having seen the Lord, they all became Vaishnavas. Thus, in ecstatic love of Godhead, they chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and danced. So, thus, by direct meetings, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the three worlds. Some people, though, being entangled in material activities, could not go to wherever Lord Chaitanya was presenting himself to the people in general. So to deliver people in regions throughout the universe, who could not meet him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally entered the bodies of pure devotees. Thus, he empowered living beings, his pure devotees, by manifesting in them so much of his own devotion that people in all other countries became devotees by seeing them. Prabhupada would be in that category, very much so. So much of Lord Chaitanya's devotion that so many people, just by seeing him, just by hearing about him, they became devotees. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the entire three worlds, not only by his personal presence, but also by empowering others. I shall briefly describe how he empowered a living being in Bengal. In Ambuya Muluka, there was a person named Nakula Brahmachari, who was a perfectly pure devotee, greatly advanced in devotional service. Desiring to deliver all the people of Bengal, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the heart of Nakula Brahmachari. Nakula Brahmachari became exactly like a man haunted by a ghost. Thus he sometimes laughed, sometimes cried, sometimes danced, and sometimes chanted like a madman. He continuously exhibited bodily transformations of transcendental love. Thus he cried, trembled, became stunned, perspired, danced in love of Godhead, and made sounds like those of a cloud. Means some rumbling sounds. Amazing. His body shone with the same luster as that of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he showed the same absorption in ecstatic love of Godhead. People came from all provinces of Bengal to see these symptoms. We can just mention that one time in New York, devotees were telling me years ago, when Prabhupada was there for a Rath Yatra, he was there for a few Rath Yatras in New York. It's quite a spectacular Rath Yatra. And Srila Prabhupada, he had an effulgence. His skin was more or less golden, and he definitely had an effulgence. So the devotees were saying that one Rath Yatra day, which is Rath Yatra Day, I think it's the first Sunday in June, is Rath Yatra Day in New York. The devotees, that's the day is reserved for the devotees. So the police come, of course, to sort of monitor things, and just they walk along with the procession, big procession, and just keep an eye on things. And these are New York police, not just American police, but New York police. If you haven't been to New York, if you haven't spent a bit of time in New York, you wouldn't know what that means. But put it this way, you could say they are real policemen. They're such tough people. I saw them once stop a car right next to us and drag these guys out physically. These sort of gangster-looking, types. Drag them out, hurled them against the car, just smashed them against the car, hurled them across the bonnet. Real policemen. Maybe they're too real sometimes. But yeah, they're tough guys. They're just tough guys. So these two big New York policemen were just hanging around, waiting for the Rath Yatra to start. And then Prabhupada arrived. And Prabhupada's just sort of walking around a little bit, seeing. And these two big New York policemen saw Prabhupada, and one of them grabbed the other one and said, "Hey, look at that guy." That's Prabhupada. "Look at that guy. He's glowing." Yes. So Nakula Brahmachari, his body shone with the same luster as that of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Lord Chaitanya was in his heart. And he showed the same absorption and ecstatic love of Godhead. And people came from all provinces of Bengal to see these symptoms. He advised whomever he met to chant the holy names, Hare Krishna. Thus, upon seeing him, people were overwhelmed with love of Godhead. When Shivananda Sain, famous associate of Lord Chaitanya, very famous, there's part of one chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita just dedicated to Shivananda Sain and the dog who he sort of, you could say, adopted, something like that. So, right, when Shivananda Sain heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had entered the body of Nakula Brahmachari, he went there with doubts in his mind, desiring to test the authenticity of Nakula Brahmachari. He stayed outside, thinking as follows. This is him thinking. If Nakula Brahmachari personally calls me and knows my worshipable mantra, then I shall understand that he is inspired by the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thinking in this way, he stayed some distance apart. I don't know if any of you have been to that place. What do you call it? Amuya something? Where is it? Anyway, it's on. Have you been there? Nakula Brahmachari. It's a very small village. It's almost hardly a village. Well, it's not really a village, actually. It's just the temple. And there are a few houses just a little distance, some hundreds of meters away. So there's the temple of Nakula Brahmachari with his deities, his Gaurnitai deities, and some of his Shalagram Shilas. Nice, very nice temple. It's not a small, it's not a big temple, but it's, we were there a few years ago with 100 and something devotees, everyone fitted inside. So, it's not just a small temple with his deities, and his samadhi is there also. And Shivananda, the seat of Shivananda Sain, is outside in the front. Actually, when you walk up to the temple, you may not notice it. It's under a tree, and there's a seat there, like a small throne, if I remember correctly, with his name on it. And it's probably 50 meters or something, maybe slightly more, from the actual temple where Nakula Brahmachari was. So it is a little way, and there was a whole crowd of people there because they've all come to see this really super extraordinary person, Nakula Brahmachari. So like this, thinking, if Nakula Brahmachari personally calls me and knows my worshipable mantra, then I shall understand that he is inspired by the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And thinking in this way, he stayed some distance apart. It's like, I guess it's from here to the moat away, or something like that. There was a large crowd of people, some coming and some going. Indeed, some people in that great crowd could not even see Nakula Brahmachari. In his inspired state, Nakula Brahmachari said, Shivananda Sain is staying some distance away. 2 or 4 of you go call him. It's just an interesting little purely cultural point. 2 or 4 people. In English, we would say 2 or 3, something like that. 3 or 4, But 2 or 4, but you come across this. It's not extremely common, but you come across it here and there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. 2 or 4, or 4 or 6, something like that. So 2 or 4 of you go call him. Thus, people began running here and there, calling in all directions. Shivananda, whoever is Shivananda, please come. Nakula Brahmachari is calling you. Hearing these calls, Shivananda Sain quickly went there, offered obeisances to Nakula Brahmachari, and sat down near him. Nakula Brahmachari said, I know that you are doubtful. Now please hear this evidence with great attention. You are chanting the Gaur Gopal mantra consisting of 4 syllables. Now please give up the doubts that have resided within you. So, yes, superhuman consciousness. Yeah, it's the presence of the Lord. And Prabhupada gives a purport to this verse because it's the mantra, the Gaur Gopal mantra, composed of 4 syllables. Prabhupada says, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the Gaur Gopal mantra in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. Worshippers of Sri Gaura Sundar accept the 4 syllables Gaura Anga as the Gaura mantra. But pure worshippers of Radha and Krishna accept the 4 syllables Radha Krishna as the Gaur Gopal mantra. However, Vaishnavas consider Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu non-different from Radha Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahe Anya. Therefore, one who chants the mantra Gauranga and one who chants the names of Radha and Krishna are on the same level. Gauranga. 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 Radha Krishna. Radha Krishna. Haribol. So like this, Shivananda Sen thereupon developed full confidence in his mind that Nakula Brahmachari was filled with the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shivananda Sen then offered him respect and devotional service. In this way, one should understand the inconceivable potencies of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, please hear how his appearance, avirbhava, takes place. And this is more subtle. I already mentioned the basic idea. This is more subtle. He appears directly or indirectly. Appears, of course, that's a correct word to use. But you could say he becomes present because he may not be visible, but he's present. Yes. So now please hear how his appearance or his presence, his becoming present, takes place. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always appeared in 4 places. In the household temple of Mother Sachi, in the places where Sri Nityananda Prabhu danced, in the house of Srivas Pandit during congregational chanting, and in the house of Raghava Pandit. That means Panihati. So he appeared like this because of his attraction to the love of his devotees. That is his natural characteristic. So yeah, he appeared always appeared regularly, every day in the household temple of Mother Sachi. Mother Sachi every day, after Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas and gone to Puri, But every day Mother Sachi would cook for him. And, typical Bengali, rice, spinach, maybe sukta, things like this, particularly rice, spinach, different spinaches. Do you get lal sag here? You understand lal sag? Red herbs.
Not the spinach type though.
Oh, really? It's red though.
It's red.
It's not spinachy, leafy.
It's leafy, but not the spinach feel.
Oh, okay. Anyway, okay. Yeah, so Mother Sachi would cook for Lord Chaitanya every day. And sometimes he would come and eat invisibly. She wouldn't see, but she would see that the food had gone. Because sometimes he would just literally eat it and that would be that. Sometimes he would eat some and leave some. Yes, and sometimes Mother Sachi thought she was going mad. What's going on? Yeah. So he always, as the verse says, he always appeared there, but generally invisibly. Then he would always appear wherever Lord Nityananda danced. There's a famous story, very famous story of the Chiradahi festival of Raghunath Das. Goswami at the time, just Raghunath Das. I'm sure you all know the story. We observed the festival every year. Lord Nityananda came and with his associates, and Raghunath Das came and offered obeisances, and Lord Nityananda called him, and there was an exchange between them, and Lord Nityananda knew that Raghunath Das was from an extremely wealthy family. Talk about multi-billionaire type of family. So he ordered Raghunath Das arrange a feast for all my devotees, because there's a whole, we don't know how many, but at least hundreds, maybe thousands, with Lord Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda told him, arrange a feast of flat rice and yogurt, which, anyway, he could have said, just arrange a feast, and it would have been, some major feast with different subjis and rice and sweets and dal and savories and just, some relative of our feast yesterday. But he told him, and for Raghunath Das, this is just nothing, just simply nothing, financially or organizationally. But Lord Nityananda said, arrange a feast of chipped rice, which is basically flat rice, yeah? And yogurt, which, anyway, I had flat rice for breakfast this morning. So, but chipped rice, flat rice with yogurt, in my experience from my first visit to India, 1976, is that it's more often, or at least often, used as a sort of home remedy for diarrhea. Hare Krishna. Accelerated digestive system. So that's what they prepared. Chipped rice in yogurt and chipped rice in condensed milk, which is definitely, it's not just a medicinal preparation. So then Lord Nityananda was going around seeing that everything's going on and like that. And then Lord Chaitanya appeared there, but nobody saw him. Only Lord Nityananda saw him. And then the two sat down to eat, and they were pushing chipped rice and yogurt into each other's mouths. And then that evening, Lord Nityananda danced in the temple of Raghava Pandit, which is just across the road. Well, it's about 200 meters or 250 meters from where that pastime took place. There's an old banyan tree there. So there's where his house was and where his samadhi is, Raghava Pandit, just a few hundred yards away. And Lord Nityananda had kirtan that night, and it was just an amazing kirtan. And Lord Chaitanya Charitamrita explains, Lord Chaitanya appeared there also. So basically, wherever Sri Nityananda Prabhu danced, Lord Chaitanya would be there. Then he was always in the house of Srivas Pandit during congregational chanting. Now that was more actually means like directly in person. Before Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, there's a number of pastimes of kirtan, nocturnal kirtan in the house, in the courtyard of Srivas Pandit. And it's from there that the huge Sankirtan party went to confront the Chandkazi further up the road in Vamanpakur. So Lord Chaitanya was personally there. It wasn't a subtle thing at all. Then he was always in the house of Raghava Pandit, which, as we mentioned, is there in Panihati. Raghava Pandit was a very dear. He would take all sorts of prasadam preparations to Jagannath Puri every year. A lot of it made by his sister. And so in that temple, you've been to that temple, Panihati? Anyone been there? So in that temple, they have a one room. I mean, it's not a small temple. I'm sure it can fit 300 or 400 people. It's a substantial temple. But on one side, there's this sort of little museum room. And in it, there are dioramas of Raghava Pandit and the devotees walking from Panihati to Puri. And there are dioramas of the prasadam. Yeah. Made out of, I don't know what, I think they're probably ceramic. different preparations that they would take. It's quite a major pastime. So, okay. Yes. So Lord Chaitanya would always appear in those four places. The household temple of Mother Sachi, where Sri Nityananda Prabhu danced, in the house of Shivas Pandit, in the house of Raghava Pandit. So the example given here, and this is a bit more of a subtle story, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to follow. I'll just read it. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared before Nishingananda Brahmacharya and ate his offerings. Please hear about this with attention. Okay. All right? Hear about this with attention. Right. Shivananda Sain had a nephew named Srikanta Sain, who by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely fortunate. One year, Srikanta Sain came alone to Jagannath Puri in great eagerness to see the Lord. Seeing Srikanta Sain, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed causeless mercy upon him. Srikanta Sain stayed near Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for about 2 months at Jagannath Puri. When he was about to return to Bengal, the Lord told him, "Forbid the devotees of Bengal to come to Jagannath Puri this year." Yeah. "This year I shall personally go to Bengal and meet all the devotees there, headed by Advaita Acharya. Please inform Shivananda Sain that in the month of Pausha, December, January, I shall certainly go to his home. Jagadananda is there, and he will give me offerings of food. Inform them all that no one should come to Jagannath Puri this year," because every year the devotees means quite a band of some good few hundreds of great devotees. They'd all go every year for those 18 years. But this year, one of those 18 years that Lord Chaitanya was in Puri, he's giving this order, very clear order, through Srikanta Sain, the nephew of Shivananda Sain. So when Srikanta Sain returned to Bengal and delivered this message, the minds of all the devotees were very pleased. Why? Because they think Lord Chaitanya is coming to Bengal. Advaita Acharya was just about to go to Jagannath Puri with the other devotees, but upon hearing this message, he waited. Shivananda Sain and Jagadananda also stayed back, awaiting the arrival of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the month of Pausha arrived, Jagadananda and Shivananda collected all kinds of paraphernalia for the Lord's reception. Every day they would wait until evening for the Lord to come. Yes. Because Lord Chaitanya told Srikanta Sain that tell Shivananda Sain that I'm coming in this month, Pausha. December, January means basically now, that I will certainly go to his home. And Jagadananda is there. He will give me offerings of food. So they both waited every day, just every day. They just waited till the evening. Just like when Krishna left Vrindavan from Nandagram. He went down what they call the old Mathura road. There's one road where if you go up onto the roof around the temple building, on one side, it's what the southeast side, you see this road. And it's not a big road at all, but it's a tar-sealed road just going straight out for some distance. It's the old road to Mathura. So Lord Krishna left on that road, and some of the devotees followed him. That's a whole other story. Some devotees just went out on that road, like a few hundred meters, and just stopped, and they waited, and they're looking, just waiting for Krishna to return. So, but of course Krishna didn't return. I mean, it's a bit of a long story, but definitely on the surface of it, Krishna didn't return in the sort of the very normal sense of returning. But those people, they stayed there on the road, by the edge of the road, just looking down to see when Krishna returned. And they stayed there for years. For years. Because Krishna left, he was about sort of 10-ish, and he departed from this world when he was 125. So they just waited the whole time, just looking down the road. But devotees, not only did they just wait, without going home and, all the normal things, not only did they just wait and look, but they waited and looked without blinking, because they were afraid if they blinked, they might miss Krishna. This is serious devotees. This is another dimension of devotee altogether. So they just waited and looked without blinking. Right, so every day Jagadananda and Shivananda collected all kinds of paraphernalia for the Lord's reception. Every day they'd wait until evening for the Lord to come. As the month passed, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not come, Jagadananda and Shivananda became most unhappy. Suddenly, Nishingananda Brahmacharya arrived, because he is the one mentioned here, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared before Nishingananda Brahmacharya and ate his offerings. That's what we're reading about. Please hear about this with great attention. Suddenly Nishingananda arrived, and Jagadananda and Shivananda arranged for him to sit near them. Seeing them both so unhappy, Nishingananda inquired, "Why do I see that you are both despondent?" Then Shivananda Sain told him, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu promised that he would come. Why then has he not arrived? Hearing this, Nishingananda Brahmacharya replied, "Please be satisfied. I assure you that I shall bring him here 3 days from now." Shivananda and Jagadananda knew of Nishingananda Brahmacharya's influence and love of Godhead. Therefore, they now felt assured that he would certainly bring Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His real name was Pradyumna Brahmacharya. The name Nishingananda had been given to him by Lord Gaurasunda himself. After meditating for 2 days, Nishingananda Brahmacharya told Shivananda Sen, I have already brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the village known as Panihati. Tomorrow at noon, he will come to your home, Shivananda Sen. Therefore, please bring all kinds of cooking ingredients. I shall personally cook and offer him food. In this way, I shall bring him here very soon. Be assured that I'm telling you the truth. Do not be doubtful. So, there's another story about Nishingananda Brahmacharya. You may be familiar with it. It's from the earlier parts of Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya wanted to go to Vrindavan, but so he came up to Bengal and then took a left turn towards Vrindavan. But he only went as far as a place called Kanai Natashala, which is not so far. It's still in Bengal. It's not so far from, what's the name of the place where Rupa and Sanatan were living? Anyway, it's not so far. And Nishingananda Brahmachari had been in meditation every day, making the road from that place of Rupa and Sanatan, that place, let me just check the name. What's the name of that place? Anyway, I don't know offhand. I do know, but Ramakeli. So he made a road from Ramakeli, where Rupa and Sanatan were living. He was making this road in his mind. I mean, there was a road, but he was sort of converting it into a beautiful road with gems along the side and beautiful gardens and forest and beautiful lakes, crystal clear, pure water. He's making it within his mind from Ramakeli, going on, but then, the road reached Kanai Natashala, and in his mind, he tried to, extend it further, but he couldn't. So he told the devotees, before Lord Chaitanya went there, he told the devotees, Lord Chaitanya is not going to Vrindavan. He's going as far as Kanai Natashala. He was a real transcendental person. So he says now, I've already brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the village known as Panihati. He means in subtle forms. So tomorrow at noon he'll come to your home, bring all sorts of cooking ingredients. I, Nishingananda Brahmacharya, I'll personally cook for him and offer him food. Be assured I'm telling you the truth, do not be doubtful. Bring all the ingredients very soon, for I want to begin cooking immediately. Please do what I say. Nishingananda Brahmacharya said to Shivananda, Please bring whatever cooking ingredients I want. Thus Shivananda Sen immediately brought whatever he asked for. Beginning early in the morning, Nishingananda Brahmacharya cooked many varieties of food, including vegetables, cakes, sweet rice, and other preparations. After he finished cooking, he brought separate dishes for Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He also separately offered dishes to Nrsingadev, his worshipable deity. Thus, he divided all the food into 3 offerings. Then outside the temple, he began to meditate upon the Lord. So the offerings going on inside the temple, 3 plates. Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya, Nishingadev. In his meditation, he saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quickly come, sit down, and eat all 3 offerings, leaving behind no remnants. Nishingananda Brahmacharya was overwhelmed by transcendental ecstasy upon seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eating everything. Thus tears flowed from his eyes. Nevertheless, he expressed dismay, saying, "Alas, alas, my dear Lord, what are you doing? You are eating everyone's food. My dear Lord, you are one with Jagannath. Therefore I have no objection to your eating his offering. But why are you touching the offering for Lord Nrsingadev? I think that Nishingadev could not eat anything today, and therefore he is fasting. If the master fasts, how can the servant live?" Although Nishingananda Brahmacharya felt jubilation within his heart to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eating everything, for the sake of Lord Nrsingadev, he externally expressed disappointment. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Therefore, there's no difference between him, Lord Jagannath, and Lord Nrsingadev. Nishingananda Brahmacharya was deeply eager to understand this fact. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed it to him by a practical demonstration. After eating all the offerings, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started for Panihati. There he was greatly satisfied to see the different varieties of vegetables prepared in the house of Raghava. Shivananda said to Nishingananda, "Why are you expressing dismay?" Nishingananda replied, "Just see the behavior of your Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He alone has eaten the offerings for all 3 deities. Because of this, both Jagannath and Nishingadev remain fasting." Because nobody else saw Lord Chaitanya, because it's like a subtle manifestation. When Shivananda Sen heard the statement, he was unsure whether Nishingananda Brahmacharya was speaking that way because of ecstatic love or because it was actually a fact. When Shivananda Sen was thus perplexed, Nishingananda Brahmacharya said to him, "Bring more food. Let me cook again for Lord Nrsingadev." Then Shivananda Sen again brought the ingredients with which to cook, and Nishingananda Brahmacharya again cooked and offered the food to Nrsingadev. Because now, you see, no one knows. They all think Lord Chaitanya he said he would come, but he hasn't come, and, that's the situation. But Nishingananda Brahmacharya, well, he saw Lord Chaitanya. So the next year, Shivananda went to Jagannath Puri with all the other devotees to see the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One day in the presence of all the devotees, the Lord raised these topics concerning Nishingananda Brahmacharya and praised his transcendental qualities. The Lord said, last year, in the month of Pausha, when Nishingananda Brahmacharya gave me varieties of sweetmeats and vegetables to eat, they were so good that I felt I had never before eaten such preparations. Hearing this, all the devotees were struck with wonder, and Shivananda became confident that the incident was true. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to eat at the temple of Sachimata every day, and also visit the house of Srivas Thakur when kirtan was performed. There must have been other times after Lord Chaitanya had left for Puri. Similarly, he was always present when Nityananda Prabhu danced, and he regularly appeared at the house of Raghava. Lord Gaurasundar is greatly influenced by the love of his devotees. Therefore, wherever there is pure devotion to the Lord himself, subdued by such love, appears, and his devotees see him. Influenced by the loving affairs of Shivananda Sen, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came again and again. Therefore, who can estimate the limits of his love? Thus, I have described the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone who hears about these incidents can understand the transcendental opulence of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande, Haribol, Haribol. So, devotees, see you tomorrow. We'll carry on with some, maybe Lord Nityananda. Hare Krishna. Oh, okay.
This camera thing came out. So do you not put it back in?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. It was beeping for some time.
okay.